Oh, wait, we're
How,
live.
how many Nobel Prize winners, lecturers do you have at the Wharton School? You're not sure?
I don't know. Okay, wait, guys, we're live. Okay.
Are we?
Yes, we're
Oh,
live.
yeah. Okay.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the National Assembly of Malaysian Students in America's Career Webinar Series. So the purpose of this series is to expose Malaysians in the US to various fields of interest, from public policy to journalism, featuring experienced professionals from key industries in Malaysia. This webinar series hopes to encourage Malaysians, to pursue their dreams by establishing solid foundations for us to kickstart our journeys. So I'm Rachel Leong. I'm a freshman at the University of Pennsylvania, and I'll be the moderator of today's webinar, Perdana Fellows Program 101. So before we begin, allow me to introduce our panelists, Mohamad, Syazwan, Abdul, Rahman, and Iqbal, Rafi, who have both been involved in the program. So Syazwan graduated from Drake University with a degree in actuarial science, and now he's attached to CIMB Bank as an associate. He was a Perdana Fellow back in 2015 and worked in the Economic Planning Unit in the Prime Minister's Department with Tan Sri Abdul Wahid Omar, the former minister in the Prime Minister's Department. Apart from carrying the responsibilities of a Perdana Fellow, he went above and beyond and pioneered the Perdana Fellow lecture series and teh tarik sessions to connect with ministers and leaders. Iqbal, our other panelist, is kind of facing some technical issues, so you won't be able to see him, but that's okay. He also graduated from Drake University, but with a degree in finance and economics. Now he is an analyst at Baton Global Management Consulting. Iqbal was a fellow to the former Minister of Finance, Dato Sri Ahmad Husni Hanadzlah. And a fun fact about him, he spends his free time on cooking lessons with Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver. So we're honored to have both of you here with us today. Throughout the webinar, I'll be asking both of our panelists a set of questions, but anyone in the audience, please feel free to comment any questions you may have in the live chat box. And remember to include your university as well. Now, let's begin with the panel. Okay, so some of our audience may or may not have heard about the Perdana Fellows Program, so let's begin with an overview of the program. And what better way to hear about it than from its alumni? So Syazwan and Iqbal, what exactly is the Perdana Fellows Program? Shall we start with Syazwan?
Okay, sure. All right, hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. About Perdana Fellows Program. Honestly, when I heard about the program, it was when I joined the East Coast Festival in Penn State back in 2015, and KJ was there and he told us about the program. So that's one of the reasons why we applied at the time. And also, what is Perdana Fellows Program? Basically, in simple words, you will go through internship period for 2 weeks up to 6 months with the cabinet office himself. Only for ministers, not deputy ministers. And also, yeah, you can get to join some of the ministers' office meeting events with Grassroots and some of the big events as well. And also, in terms of the experience itself, should I go with the experience or not yet? Okay, so basically, you will get along with the ministers. I can say some sort of shadowing the ministers and the special officers and all officers of the ministers. So from there, you can learn on what is the role of the ministers in that particular ministry. Yeah, but you can add more.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Rachel, for the generous introduction of me. Well, what is Perdana Fellow Program is? It's actually a government program where the government intended to bridge the gap between the youth and the governments, because sometimes the government doesn't really understand the youth and the youth doesn't really understand how the government works. So it's a program to help both of these segment, you know, to understand each other's. And throughout the program, we got to know, you know, how the minister works, how the ministerial, I guess, the ministry works. Also, you know, how the politics and the parliamentary procedures and whatnot, and how you can pass a bill and whatnot, and actually understand the entire government system, which is a little bit complex system for youth to understand. So it helps to bridge that knowledge gap both between both segments. Yeah.
All right. So, like, listening about your experiences, it seems like it was a very heavy job. Like, there was a lot to learn. So, what were some challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them? Should we start with Iqbal?
Well, some of the challenges. Well, when I first came into the program, I don't really know how the government works, frankly speaking. I don't even know how the rank between the minister office, you know, rank works. So trying to understand the politics inside the office is kind of hard for me because I'm not in the program for, you know, political reason. I'm there because I want to learn more on the public policy side rather than, you know, understand the political side. Some people love the political side, but I'm more on public policy side. So the challenge, some of the challenge is trying to understand all that within, you know, short period of time. And it's helpful with some of your colleagues really, you know, have been in these, some of them are part of the club UMNOs, Luar Negara, so you can learn from them a lot and they can help you on understanding that. So that's one of them. Secondly, I think some people gonna feel the challenge of, you know, working overtime. So this is not in, you know, 9 to 5 jobs. Sometimes you got to work with the minister until midnight, so that's normal. So some people will have that kind of challenge, you know, because you have, this is your 24/7 kind of works, you know, sometimes you have to work during the weekend. I was in Malaysia for 2 months. I think I only spent 1 weekend with my families throughout this program. So it's kind of tough, but that's part of the government works. Then you know how hard the cabinet minister actually works.
I think I can add some answers as well. In terms of challenges, one of the most quite big challenges for us, like newbies into the cabinet minister's cabinet office stuff, is of course the office politics. You know, you are working with like some sort of high level members of the ministers, and there are some secrets that they cannot reveal to everyone, of course, because some of the policies are still not being implemented, still in discussion, and cannot be revealed to anyone out of the office. So being a new person inside the office, sometimes you need to know how to not like asking the members of the cabinet, the minister's office, on some sort of secrets and everything. So basically, you need to know who you are and just be yourself, be humble. Don't show like you are very intelligent and you pandang rendah to some of the members in the minister's office. And second one, yeah, of course, like what Iqbal mentioned before, is the working hours. It's very random, and sometimes the special officer or the secretary will call you and say, hey, your boss want you to go to Terengganu this weekend, so you have to buy your own ticket and later you can claim the ticket to us and everything, some sort of that. So you have to be prepared all the time, and you need to make sure your phone is not in silent mode or flight mode, because sometimes, there was one time, one of my friends, he was almost getting sleep at 2 a.m. at the time. Then suddenly his boss texted him, hey, can you get me some info on this? So he's like, oh, okay, what time do you want me to give this to you? It's 7 a.m. So he's like, okay, I have to work tonight before 7 a.m. everything like that. So yeah, and thirdly, it should be on how you communicate with people, not only people in the ministerial office, also with people at the grassroots level, because you know some of your bosses are politicians and they will go visit their respective constituencies, and from there you need to know how to speak, communicate, and observe what all these politicians do at their respective constituencies. Yeah, so there are some of the key challenges when you join this program.
Right. It sounds as though you guys learned a lot throughout the program because there's so many different experiences. So building off that, what would you say were your best and your worst experiences throughout the program? Syazwan, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. For me, the best experience is that I get to attach under Tan Sri Wahid Omar. So basically people who have background in finance or business, they will know who is Tan Sri Wahid Omar is. And also I get to join some of the top meeting with the prime ministers, deputy prime ministers, and with Dato Seri Idris Jala, with Iqbal boss as well. So it's very high level meeting, and I get to join, not to participate, but just to observe and to see how they implement the policies at very high level. And the worst experience, I think the worst experience for me is to because I felt at that time that I need to learn more because when I joined some of the meeting, especially meeting with investors or meeting about current economic situation and everything. Although I did minor in economics, but there are some things that I know I can learn more, and I had to ask more questions to the special officer, to his private secretary. So yeah, some of the hard time at that time was to ask the right question for me.
Well, to me, the best experience throughout my fellowship, we experienced some kind of what we call a perfect economic storm. This is where, you know, the currency went down, the oil price went down. We have one IMDb crisis, we have cabinet reshuffle. So to be in that, you know, I guess space or environment, that's where the learning opportunities arise, because you know, with all these problems, you got to learn a lot. And one of my I guess greatest memory about Perdana Fellowship is that I am able, you know, to do one-on-one interview with the assistant governor of Bangor, just to ask him, you know, hard questions about, you know, how's our economy doing, and you know, labor market and whatnot, currency, interest rate, you know, all of that stuff. So because I'm a major in finance economics, and me being able to interview, you know, one of the highest position in the central bank, it's one of the wonderful experience that I ever experienced. Speaking about worst experience, well, it happens, I guess, during my first day of my jobs. This is where, you know, all the Perdana Fellows and all the cabinet minister are gathered in one room, and then you got to meet your boss at the first time. Then, of course, you know, being all the Perdana Fellows there and all the cabinet ministers there, you got tons of medias there. So some of the media, you know, take my statement. Although I'm being careful with my statement, they're still able to spin my statement on my first day of the job. So yeah, that's kind of, you know, one of the worst experience.
Right, would you say that if you want to be a fellow, like you need a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge? Because both of you were fellows in your third year of university, if I'm not mistaken. So like, would it be hard for, say, a freshman or first year student to apply and be a fellow?
Well, I will let to start first. Well, I guess that's a myth for you to have more experience to work in a minister's office. I guess it's more about how open you are in terms of learning. I mean, everything in the ministerial office work you can learn on your own. It is that how fast you can learn and how open you are to learning that stuff. In our batch, for instance, we got like what the youngest is 19 to intern with Minister of Education, and frankly speaking, a lot of those who chosen as a fellows actually really bright students. So no matter, we don't really look at your age, we look at your willingness to learn and how better understand you are on in terms of public policy making.
Yeah, I guess as long as you have the drive you have the passion and drive to work in the role of public policy, I guess age doesn't matter lah. Same like what Iqbal said.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we'll take a second to welcome our new viewers. So just a little blurb about what we're doing right now. This is NAMSA's career webinar series, and it's about the Perdana Fellows Program that's held back in Malaysia. All right, so moving on to the application. How exactly does one apply to be a Perdana Fellow?
Okay, basically you need to look at the website, and there are 3 things. The first one would be the online form that they have on the website, the PerdanaFellows.com, fellowperdana.com, if I'm not mistaken. And secondly, you need to prepare with your essay. And essay for this year is focusing on TN50, the one that government is promoting now is TN50, Transformasi Nasional 2050. So basically they ask what's your aspirasi pada tahun 2050, and you need to answer in terms of how do you want to structure policy, certain policy in 2050. And also you need to prepare with your resume, because they will definitely look into your resume in terms of your study background, your curricular activity, and yeah, the volunteerism and everything. So yeah, all these 3 things that you have to prepare to apply to this program.
Iqbal, do you have anything to add on?
Well, part of the application, in terms of essay writing is, I guess one of the best practice I used back then is that when you apply, when you write your essay, try to first read on, public policies paper, so that you get to know better, or you get to have a better understanding on how you write a public policies paper. Right. In a 1 pages, I think. And another thing is that a lot of policies that you're thinking of, the government should do, actually has been done, or the government already think about it. So if you're able to read past public policies from ideas or ICs, or even the official government booklets, then what had been done before, or what I've been thinking of before, and you get some ideas on what can be done in the future. So it's a good thing to do, to read public policies paper from both think tank and the government official booklets or data before you're writing your essays.
All right. So we have a question from someone in our audience. So they're wondering if their major is relatively unrelated to public governance or public policy, would it still be worth a shot to apply? Syazwan, do you want to go first?
All right. Yes, you can. I think in terms of members of Perdana Fellows that we are currently having, like 4 batches, so around 350, all of us are having very diverse in terms of our study background. People did study in law, a typical policymaker, but no. You can study gender study, for example. I did actuarial science, and somewhere they throw me at economic planning unit. And also there are people who are studying mathematics, military, defense. So basically, what I can say is not really, yes, they look at your major, but not entirely like you need to have public policy major. Because, you know, if you have economics background, for example, they might put you in economics planning unit because that is more relatable to your study background. But yeah, they don't really limit your you need to have specific major for you to apply for the program.
Yeah, to add on that, it actually depends on your ACs rather than your majors. I guess it doesn't really, you know, your major doesn't really, you know, take into consideration when it comes to your application of joining the Perdana Fellow. In terms of joining what ministry you are, then it might or it might not. I'm not sure.
Okay, so building off of that, were you like tied to just one department, one ministry, or could you like change around?
During you, sorry, you go first.
Go ahead.
Okay. Wait, your question is on, sorry?
Yeah, so were you just like tied to one ministry, or could you change ministries throughout the program?
Most of the time you will stick with your ministers. I think it's a very rare case for you to get to change to another minister's office unless there are certain issues. But it's it's a very rare case. Usually when you get attached to that minister's office, you will stick there until you finish your internship period.
Yeah, that's true. It's very rare for you to change between ministry, but it's kind of, you know, to jump between department. That's what I did during my fellowships. You know, I interview a lot of departments, you know, chair in my Ministry of Finance as well as agencies. So every day I change department, I guess. That's why I guess we do, you know, Perdana Fellow Leadership Series, so that we get to know other minister and their works. So throughout the leadership series, what we did is that, you know, we asked the fellows in their respective ministry, you know, can we, you know, do a session with their ministers and get to know them better. So that's how, you know, we got to jump between ministry. You know, that's the way we do it, by getting, you know, via Perdana Fellow Leadership Series. And some of us, you know, keeping scores, you know, how many offices we've been to. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, I just need to add a little bit because you need to know that when you attach to that certain minister office, you need to do the ministers. The ministry itself is very big. You have a lot of agency under each of the ministry. For example, in EPU itself, they have more than 6 or 7 agency under EPU itself. So rather than you change from different ministry to different ministry, you don't even have time to rotate at all the agencies that respective ministries have. And even if the prime minister change the ministers, you will still staying or maintaining at that particular ministry that you attach to. So yeah.
Right. And could you choose which minister you wanted to shadow, or was it like given to you?
During our time in 2015, we didn't get a chance to choose which ministry that we want to go into. But the year after, in batch 4, the current batches right now, or last year, they get to list up to 3 ministry that they want to attach. Then from there, I think the secretary office will choose based on which one is more relevant based on your essays and your resume as well. But yeah, the most important thing is essay. Is it? Yep.
Yeah, the most important thing is your essays. If you write if you write essay on economics, don't expect yourself to be in health, Ministry of Health or Ministry of Foreign Affairs, something like that. So I guess the weightage is heavily on your essays.
And speaking of essays, do you have any other essay tips for any of our viewers who are thinking of applying?
I think like what Iqbal mentioned just now, the most important thing is when you think to write on certain policies or you want to address on certain issues, Google first, go to that particular ministry who's in charge of that particular issue and look into their current policies that they have or they are currently working right now. So from there, you can see whether this policy is relevant or not, or where you can, or let's say you see that the issue that you want to address has been addressed by certain policy, you look into that policy, and if you see certain room for improvement, then go ahead, just write your stuff. As long as you can propose a new one, or you can improve what they're currently having right now, or there might be a good chance for them to read your essay. As long as you don't just criticize the government policy without providing some sort of solution. I know at our level, at our stage, we don't really understand about how are they writing their policy, but we can alarm. So like what Iqbal mentioned just now, you need to look into some policy papers that being written by think tank like Ideas, ICs, and other think tanks in Malaysia, just to get to know how they write their policy papers. That's a good thing to learn and start write your essay.
I guess another tip is that, well, I'm not sure if I should say this. Don't write public policies paper on education, because that's 80%. During my time, 80% of our batch actually wrote an essay on education policies. So if you want to try differentiate yourself, try to focus on other issues like foreign affairs. Because right now we have China's in Malaysia issues, we have North Korea issues. So I guess that's one of the topics that you might interest to write on. Another thing is that try to structure your essay. Like Syazwan said, don't just criticize. We hate people criticize policies without providing solution, and try to sanitize your solution by by bringing your solution to your friends and ask them whether this makes sense or not, because sometimes a lot of your solution doesn't really make sense, or some of the solution is already being implemented, or you just didn't realize it's being implemented.
All right. And okay, so one of the questions from our audience is it a must to write about policy, or could they write about something else, such as law, in their essay? Syazwan, do you want to answer this first?
Wow, okay, I don't have a background in law, okay, but I can try. Yeah, basically what they want from out of this program is how you can give impact to the country, to the society through policy making. So yeah, they will of course prioritize on how you want to change or improve the policy. But then in terms of law, does it mean like you want to amend some of the law? If the question is about that, I think yes, as long as you provide how would this amendment of certain laws or will give impact to the society, to the country, and then that would be a plus for you lah, because you know inside out about the laws, and you know that specific law that you want to amend, or you want to change, remove, or you want to add a new law, something like that. Yeah, for me it's a bonus lah for you if you understand the law of Malaysia.
I guess to add into that, this, correct me if I'm wrong, this year paper or essay is about your TN50 aspiration and how you can, what kind of public policies can be done to achieve that, right? So
Yep.
In terms of law, it's interesting because I just went to TN50 event here in KL with YBKJ, and this one lawyer said his aspiration is for the supreme law, our supreme law, to be, you know, the superpower of law. There's no law that, you know, can clash with it or whatnot. And I guess to build up on that TN50 aspiration, which is like, you know, like in the US, you have a Supreme Court, which is the highest power. The same goes to here. That's what this lawyer want. So if that's your aspiration, what are your public policies can be done to strengthen the Supreme Court, or to strengthen the Supreme Law to be the superpower in terms of law orders, I guess, for the lack of better words. So when it comes to that, in terms of your aspiration, try to look at, you know, some of the aspiration, like having nuclear powers or whatnot. Try, like, again, in terms of sanitizing your aspiration is also important. So trying to get bigger pictures of, you know, what this nation should be. I guess you need to do a lot more. Going back into the questions before, you know, how to improve your ACs, is that to get a better picture of what this nation should be, is that, you know, to get to know more about what the future going to be like. So reading Elon Musk or, you know, Larry Page of Google about the ideas of the futures, I guess it's important to know, because that's how this nation should be, you know, trying to get a better understanding on how the futurists look at the futures and how you should look at the futures based on that futurist ideas. I guess it's one of the important things when it comes to TN50 aspiration, and then and only then you can devise your public policy to achieve that aspiration.
All right, thank you. So like I'm pretty sure a lot of the applicants will have like great ideas about how to change or implement different public policies. And throughout the program, like, were any of your ideas implemented?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, there are, from what I've known lah, from my limited experience. Yeah, I've known some of my friends who their policies that they presented to the cabinet ministers being implemented by the minister. For example, the current Kad Siswa One Malaysia or something like that, where they will give some sort of benefit into the card. That was suggested by two of our batchmates in 2015, and they implemented last year or earlier this year, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, there are some examples that what we propose to our mentor or our ministers being implemented. Then yeah, you want to add anything, Ba?
Well, for me, in my AC, I read about public procurement in the government sectors, and despite my research, I thought, you know, my ideas is not being implemented. But when I you know, interviewed the public procurement departments, actually it's being done. So yeah, I guess I'm late in terms of, you know, making a public policy. So yeah, like I said before, you know, try to sanitize your ideas when you write an essays.
I think I want to add more lah, because you know, sometimes when we write about all these policies, we are hoping that they will implement, right? But in terms of the timeline or the suitability or the relevance of it, it will take time, of course, and it might not happen during your internship period in the minister's office. But one of the best thing about being Perdana Fellow is that you have that very good connection or relationship with your boss, with the ministers themselves. So apart from making sure that your policy that you suggested will table in the parliament or will at least give some insights to the ministry, you can just straight away tell your boss what's your aspiration, why you write that essay, why you suggest that certain policy. And sometimes they not sometimes like usually they will listen to you and they will take note on what you suggested, and yeah, they will know about what you wrote through yourself during your internship period. Yeah.
Well, to add on into that, when it comes to public policy, you have to realize that government is actually in the business of taking care of all stakeholders, and some of our policies that we want actually focus on one specific stakeholders, which sometimes gonna, I guess, for the lack of better words, make other stakeholders angry. So the government is actually taking care of a breadth of stakeholder rather than a depth of stakeholders, so not specific stakeholders. So sometimes your policies cannot be implemented because it doesn't really take care of majority of the stakeholders.
All right, so the program is very policy heavy, and both of you are now not really pursuing anything related to public policy. So how did the Perdana Fellows Program help you in your career path today? And do you think that you will go into public policy eventually? Syazwan?
Okay, you will choose me. Okay, yeah, currently working in a bank, and in terms of to address to your question, what I've learned after the Perdana Fellow, even though I'm not in policy making side, I can summarize into 3 points. The first one would be the connection that you have with the minister's office. So let's say, for example, I want to have a program about women empowerment. I can get in touch with my friends who had interned with the women minister's office before and just straight away contact their special officer or their private secretary to propose the idea. So what I can say is that the connection, the direct connection that we have with the minister's office is beneficial to us. And second one is the connection with your circle of friends in Perdana Fellow itself, because like what I mentioned just now, the diversity, because in terms of the composition of the members is very diverse, so you can get to know with people from background, law background, economics background, engineering, people doing business, people in consulting firm, people doing NGOs, and even people become a politician, chief youth to a certain new political party in Malaysia. So the connection that you have and the knowledge that you will learn from each other is also important for you moving forward. And the third one would be, of course, the alumni association that we have right now. We some of the events that we have is called Perdana corporate series, where we get the chance to meet with some of the corporate leaders in Malaysia, and not only specific Malaysian company. We also met with people from GE, BCG, McKinsey. So it's very good experience in terms of with connection that you have, that like what I mentioned in the first point, you can leverage it for your own career development. And to address to your second part of the question, and will I wanted to go back into policy making, as of today, my answer would be yes, because my long-term planning is to go into politics. But what I'm currently doing is more on how to develop myself in terms of my soft skill, my technical skills, and my knowledge. Because, you know, being a policymaker, being for especially members of parliament, MP, right, you, of course, apart from your influence, you need to have knowledge, especially in today's world. So yeah, because my idol honestly is Tan Sri Wahid Omar and Rafi Ramli. So both of them are very good in terms of technical skill, their financial skill, accounting skill, and of course their analytical skill, and they learn it throughout their career during their early 20s and 30s. So yeah, to address to that question, yes, in long-term planning, I'm interested to go back into policy making.
To add on into that one, I guess some of us are pursuing, in public policy space, some of us not going to purely private space that doesn't really relate to public policies like me. But I thought, like I said before, our government is in business of all stakeholder. So being in a Ministry of Finance, I got to know a lot of stakeholder of Ministry of Finance like Bank Negara, Bursa Malaysia, LHDN and whatnot, customs. So getting to know all these people actually leads to my better understanding on how the capital markets in a country works. And that leads to, for me, let's make my job right now easier, because I get to know the bigger picture of the capital markets and how each players in the industry works, and what's their expectation, or what's their goals in their respective firms. Another thing, like one said, being in a Perdana Fellows, although you're not involved in public policies, but you have the networks in the public policy space. So even though you're in private doing business, your network actually equal to your net worth. So having into a government agencies, I guess networks, you get to tap into that networks, and to get better understanding on what they need and how you can supplement their needs in terms of business. And whether I want to be in policy making in the futures or right now, not really. But if the government want to engage with me in terms of policy making, I would be open on that, especially on creating social impact, or in terms of impact investment, in which my niche, I guess, or my areas, or Islamic finance. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have a lot of new viewers now, so I'll welcome all of you. This is, in case you didn't know, this is NAMSA's career webinar series, Perdana Fellows Program 101. And here we have with us Syazwan and Iqbal, who were both in the Perdana Fellows Program back in 2015. So if you have any questions, just post them in the live chat and we'll ask. All right. So both of you mentioned a lot about networking and making connections. Do you still maintain close relationships with the ministers whom you worked with over the program?
That's a good question. I don't really get in touch with my boss since he stepped down. So no, not really. But it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, or it's not a good thing, I guess. It's neutral to me.
Okay, for me, my boss is currently the chairman of PMB. He's not in minister's office anymore. So yeah, sometimes because our industry currently are quite related, so sometimes when we're having conference or meeting, I might meet him as well. So, and he still recognize me. It's good for me. And sometimes I will contact him through email to ask questions, but they are more on personal stuff, like which career should I choose, or what kind of line of department, investment bank that I need to go into for me to learn more, or something like that. So yeah, I still keep in touch with him, but not regularly. And that's from both of us. But I've known some of my friends who are after joining the Perdana Fellows program, and they still, because some of their bosses are politicians, so they still keep in touch with their bosses in terms of doing event for grassroots level for their former bosses. So yeah, it depends on how you want to leverage on the contact or connection that you have with your boss.
All right. Okay, so we have a question from one of our viewers. It seems that policy is very central to the fellowship. So are fellows involved in policy research? And how much policy research is conducted in the government? Or do you just rely and capitalize on research that's done by think tanks, like ideas?
Do you want to repeat that question again?
All right, so how much policy research do you conduct?
Well, in terms of policy research I conduct, well, I didn't really conduct a lot of policy research. I wouldn't say it's policy research because I interviewed a lot of stakeholders, like I mentioned before, meeting with SC, Bursa, Bank Negara. But a lot of the interview I did before is that what I did, I interviewed them, I put a page of summary of each meeting and send it to the ministers. So it's not really a policy research, but I guess part of the job is, to get to know these stakeholders and their feedbacks and send it to the ministers and let the minister think about, how to respond to that feedbacks or how to respond in terms of, policy making in the futures. And do we rely on just the think tank? No, we have entire department just on research and development of public policies, and each departments have their own research team to do that. Yeah. So no, we don't really rely on think tanks. Think tank is just there, to be a check and balance for the government's public policies making.
Yeah, for me, if I look back into my own experience, yeah, I kind of agree with Iqbal in terms of the internal team that we have, because we can leverage on all the data that the ministers have, right? That people outside of the ministerial office that might not get access on all this data. And also, yeah, we have our own internal research team to get to dive deeper about certain policy. And also, I've known like in certain ministers, they do have a workshop that involve with a lot of stakeholders, and these stakeholders are not only from the top position, they're also coming from people at the very grassroots level, like leader of certain kampong or leader of certain youth organization or something like that. So they were invited to join that roundtable discussion and the workshop in terms of providing solution to certain issues. That's also some of the ways that they use to conduct policy research. And in terms of do they use think tank, I think in terms of the workshop that I mentioned just now, they also did invite all these think tanks to give contributions. And like what Iqbal said, their role is more on the check and balance itself. So yeah.
I guess to add on into that, some of the ministers are very open to, suggestion. I guess I think I remember one of the ministers invite all the fellows to join him, to ask him questions about one of the policies that he's making. I can't remember what, but yeah, some of the ministers are very open to your suggestions. So you being a Perdana Fellows actually can contribute your ideas to some of the ministers on what you like to improve on.
All right, so another question from one of our viewers. Are Perdana Fellows involved in grassroots politics or the parliamentary process?
Mm,
Go ahead, Wan.
okay. From my experience, I didn't get the chance to join the parliamentary session at that time. There was no parliamentary session, and also my boss was not a politician or member of parliament, so I didn't get the political experience side of it. But I can answer based from my colleagues' experience where their bosses are politicians. Yes, they get a lot of experience in terms of going down into the grassroots, going back to respective constituencies, usually during the weekend. So that's why Iqbal said you have to prepare in terms of your office hour, working hours, because you have to work during the weekend, especially if your boss is a politician, right? So yeah, in terms of at grassroots level, it's quite active, especially in terms of doing big event at their respective constituencies, or even like small event like visiting the villages, visiting the less privileged people, visiting the hospital and something like that. So yeah, you will get a lot of grassroots or political activities if your boss is a politician.
Yeah, a lot of misunderstanding in terms of government, how the government works is actually, your minister actually a politician. So he or she has a constituent to take care of. So yeah, sometimes you have to go back to the constituent and take care of them. I went to Tambun Pera, for a weekend to do that stuff. And some of our colleagues actually have to fly to Sabah or Sarawak, I think, every weekend or every 2 weeks, something like that. So, every Friday, just fly, just go there, So it takes a lot of time to do that. Another thing is that, well, the first thing in terms of minister, actually, if you really look at them, is that they really love their constituency. So like my boss, by Friday after Solat Jumat, he's gone. He's not in the office anymore. He's already go back to Tambun Pera on the way to his constituency and take care of them. And Monday morning he's in the office. So that's the life of ministers. So sometimes your boss want you to come with them to help them in terms of organizing events and whatnot. Sometimes you got a leeway, not to spend your weekend every weekend in the constituency. So it depends, actually.
All right. So you've mentioned a lot that it's really busy and really time consuming. So do you have any advice on how to balance your personal life with being a Perdana Fellow?
Balancing. I guess in terms of balancing, well, it's typical, work-life balance tips, I guess. Just have a, list of things to do in the starting your day. Like me, I start with my days, reading news and summarize the news before 8:30 a.m. before my boss came. So that's, how you list out your things and just get it done. And part of me, thinking about work-life balance in terms of Perdana Fellowship is not that important, because you have a lot of your colleagues there, other Perdana Fellows that are really passionate about this stuff and really interesting people to meet with. So sometimes, although I'm done by 5 p.m., I'm still, hang out with these people, discussing about public policies in respective ministers. So because of that, interesting top performers, colleague in Perdana Fellows, you don't really feel like you want to go back, because you are so excited to listen to their opinion, to argue with them. It's part of the reason why I'm here in Malaysia instead of working in the US, because I want to work alongside with them. These people are so brilliant that they really love Malaysia, that you want to work with them 24/7. So yeah.
Yeah, in terms of your work-life balance during Perdana Fellows, for me, it depends on how do you prioritize the program itself. Okay, let's say you need to look at the bigger picture. What is your goal of this program? Because sometimes in certain ministries, your office hour is very short, like 8 to 4, because you don't really have much work as compared to the other minister's office. So it depends on how you yourself want to leverage, because I know some people who don't really get work during their internship period, in during this Perdana Fellow internship period, but then they take their own initiative. They write their own paper and present it to their boss, or they look at their boss schedule, and from there they drive on their own to attend that program that their bosses attended. So for me, it's up to you. How do you prioritize yourself? If you prioritize your after work life, then yeah, it's up to you. You yourself will control your schedule, right? So yeah, you look into your goal, your aspiration. Then from there, I think you can balance, or your work life balance, I guess. And yeah, like what Iqbal mentioned, your colleague in Perdana Fellows itself will push you to do more, because we are in the same team, we have the same mindset, which is to improve the country through policy making and whatnot. So yeah, I agree with what Iqbal said. Your friends will push you forward.
Okay. So, Syazwan, just now you mentioned the Perdana Fellows Alumni Association. So could both of you elaborate more on what that is and what it does?
Okay, so basically, Perdana Fellows Alumni Association is the organization that we have established for Perdana Fellows members. So basically, after you finish your period being a Perdana Fellow, you will automatically join this Alumni Association, PFAA. And what does PFAA do is basically, I can summarize into three things. First one, nation building. Of course, after we get the privilege and exposure being in cabinet minister's office, we need to move forward to continue contribute back to the society through our respective career, or our respective background or passion. So yeah, we focus on nation building, and we do have a lot of events that focusing on connecting the youth and the policymakers. For example, last year we had two roundtable discussions. First one was on TPPA. We did that with MITI, yeah, about TPPA. And the second one is about work-life balance. We did that. We collaborate with one NGO, but I forgot the name lah. Yeah, that was last year. And also we had a youth economic forum for young leaders to discuss and learn more about economics in Malaysia, or maybe at global scale. And also we had some sort of career sessions with high school and university students on how they want to choose their future path, something like that. So yeah, nation building. A second one would be to help KBS, the Ministry of Youth and Sport, in terms of improving this Perdana Fellows program, and also helping them in terms of how to implement the program, how to promote the program. So PFAA will assist KBS on that one. And also, what's the third one? Forgot the third one. Something in my mind, but I forgot already. Yeah, I guess the connections that we maintain for all our members, because the size is quite big for our organization, right? Around 300 something. around 350 if I'm not mistaken. So we need a platform for us to keep contacting each other, knowing each other, and we do that through, apart from all these professional or very big event, we also do certain social event like playing badminton, futsal, or lepak, even hang out at mama. We also have internal debate with each other just to learn from each other and talk to each other. Yeah, so there are the three things that we PFAA are focusing on.
Yeah, I guess Syazwan covered all the stuff of PFAA. You know, like I mentioned before, being in Perdana Fellows, you get to meet a really great colleague, bright students, you know, top performers at their schools and whatnot, at their respective industry, especially. So you don't to when you get to know these people, you don't really want to get lost in touch in terms of, you know, networking and connection with them. So that's why PFAA is there, you know, to maintain that relationship and to keep up the spirits of nation building, to make Malaysia a better country. So that's, I guess that's PFA, what PFAA does.
And like in the Alumni Association, or even in Perdana Fellows, what does a demographic look like? Like, are people mostly from like KL and not from anywhere else, or?
I would say,
okay, but
okay, I would say 50-50, 50-50, everything 50-50. So in terms of men and women, it's 50-50. In terms of those who study abroad and local, it's 50-50. Or in terms of urban and rural, I think it's 50-50. We got a lot of colleagues from Sabah and Sarawak, whatnot. So I guess it's 50-50 in everything. I think they try to balance it, everything out.
Yeah, actually, me and Iqbal did roughly studied in terms of the demographic of the Perdana Fellows, the member of Perdana Fellows. Yeah, my answer would be the same as him. It's quite balanced in terms of men and women, people study overseas, local, and people from urban, rural. Yeah, I just repeat what he said, right? So yeah, it's quite balanced for us in Perdana Fellows.
All right. So, another question from the audience. What do you think of the fact that Perdana Fellows calls itself the most prestigious internship program as compared to other internship programs like from Keadilan, for example?
Honestly speaking, in terms of that, the most prestigious, I would say is obviously a marketing strategy, right? For you, some sort of mindset, oh, this is very prestigious program, I want to join it, I want to be one of the prestigious, be in the most prestigious program in Malaysia or something like that. But in terms of comparing with other programs, for example, the KEIP, Keadilan Executive Internship Program, or even we have another one, Mantap, Mahasiswa Turun Parlimen. All these programs cater to different needs. For example, Perdana Fellows, we focus on policy making at cabinet level, and Keadilan and Mantap are focusing more on at the grassroots level, and Mantap attached to specific MPs in Barisan Nasional, and Keadilan focusing on working with think tank of Keadilan, Invoke, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, all these programs are very good for all of us to learn about how the policy making works, from even from top level or from at the grassroots level, right? So yeah, different organization has their different benefits that you can learn from. And what I can say is that if you don't want to apply to Perdana Fellows, then it's fine. You can use other platform as well, as long as you serve to contribute back to the society, to the country.
I guess to add on into that, it depends on what are your goals when it comes to, you know, defining prestigious internships. So if you want to learn public policy in terms of, you know, breadth, I guess the Perdana Fellows is the most prestigious internships. If you want to be focused specifically on some public policies areas, then Perdana Fellow might not be the most prestigious internships. But being saying that, when it comes to you joining the Perdana Fellowships, try to manage your expectation. Prestigious doesn't mean that you're gonna have your own drivers. Prestigious doesn't mean that you're gonna have your own bodyguards like the ministers, because you know some people going into Perdana Fellows, them being a, you know, so-called special officers to the ministers doesn't really make them special. So try to manage your expectation when it comes to joining Perdana Fellows, you know, because it's all up to what are your goals. Do you really want to join this program to contribute to the nation, or do you want to learn, or what are your goals? Then, only then, you know, that prestigious internship going to be defined on, I guess, for the lack of better words.
Right. Do you have any advice to people who in the audience who are interested in applying to be a Perdana Fellow?
Advice in terms of what? Anything. Okay, so what I can say is you need to know your passion. You need to know exactly what you want, and yeah, from there because you know, before, even when you're applying through the program, you need to write essay, right? So from the essay itself, the secretariat will know whether you are truly want to go into this program. You are truly passionate about doing policy making, working in policy making environment. So what I can say is know your priority and know your passion, and from there, yeah, life will help you, I guess.
Yeah, another advice is that try to find what kind of ministry that you like to, then tailor your ACA based on that ministry. Or sometimes you don't really like the ministry, but you like the ministers. Like, you know, you want to work with KJ, then obviously you have to write about youth and sports, or write about Commonwealth or whatnot. If you like Dato Seri Isham, then you have to focus on defense and something like that. So target where do you want to place yourself when you join the Perdana Fellows program. So, and tailor your ACA based on that target. I guess that's one of the advice. Secondly, you're gonna work a lot. So if you don't really like, you know, public policies making, or you don't really like, you know, trying to build a nation, then I guess Perdana Fellow is not the most prestigious internship for you. So it depends on, at the end of the day, it depends on what do you like to achieve in this program, because then only then you're gonna realize whether this is for you or not, because it's not for everyone actually.
And like, do you know of anyone in the Perdana Fellows program who was assigned a minister or ministry that they didn't really enjoy working with? And if so, what happened after that?
Well, there are obviously there's gonna be disgruntled between Perdana Fellows on what kind of ministers they would like to be attached with, but when you join like I said before, you have a lot of great colleagues in Perdana Fellows, and most of these are top performers. So when they don't really enjoy their works, they will find ways for them to enjoy their work at the ministries, because these are top performers, people, students, or people in the industry. So they know how to go way around and enjoy their works at the ministry. So there will always way for you to improve your, I guess, working environment in the ministry.
Yeah, I guess the first thing that you can do after you admitted to the program or to the minister's office is for you to analyze on how the office works, who's the most powerful person in the office, who are the people that you can approach, like your own peers, or which people that you cannot talk to them at the early stage. Yeah, for me, that sort of thing is very important for you to enjoy yourself during the Perdana Fellowship period, because yeah, it's very, like what I said earlier, it's a lot of secret in the government in terms of policies that they wanted to implement, right? So they might be suspicious to you because you are young people and you don't really much know about how the office work. So first impression is very important for you to get to know with the minister's office. This might sound like very scary, or oh my god, what I'm gonna do, something like that, but no worries, they are also human being. And yeah, just know how, for me, just be humble during your early days in Perdana Fellows, and don't worries, your humbleness will help you in terms of getting more work or not getting bad impression by your boss or the special officers and the secretary, everything. Yep.
All right. And okay, we have another question from the audience. Is there any minister that you recommend them to apply to, like in terms of giving them the maximum experience or the best exposure?
Oh, depends on what you want. If you want to fly to New York and attend the UN conference, apply to Foreign Affairs. If you want to ride the helicopters with Dato Seri Hisham, then apply to him. If you want to travel out of state, like 5 states in one day, then go with KJ. If you really want to focus on finance and economics, then go to finance ministers. So I guess it depends on each individual's what you really want. I got friends that apply to, the environment minister because he likes, being in the environment space. Then he got the ministry and he got the minister and he really enjoys his work, working with wildlife and whatnot. So it depends on what individual needs or what your passion are.
Yeah, I tend to agree with what Iqbal said. It depends on you, but what I can say is that when you get the minister's office that you want, or even if you didn't get and you get other ministries that you're admitted into, I guess in terms of getting maximum experience and exposure, you need to take your own initiative for you to learn more, because it's not a spoon-fed experience. Not all ministers office will have a structured program for you to do during your internship period. Some people will just being thrown into that ministry and not knowing what to do in the respective office. So take your own initiative, study what the office are doing, and then from there you can know how you can leverage on the experience to get maximum experience and exposure throughout the internship period.
Okay, thank you. So that's actually all the questions we have for today. But there's a special request from NAMSA's president. So he says, congrats, Syazwan, on your engagement.
Thank you. Work-life balance, right? Hey.
So thank you, Syazwan and Iqbal, for your time. I'm sure that everyone who has watched now has a better understanding of the Perdana Fellows Program. And to all of you out there, remember that the applications for this year to be a fellow closed on March 24th, 2017. So you still have a few days to write the essays. And if you have any further questions, you can ask Syazwan or Iqbal through NAMSA's Facebook group. Oh, and Also, NAMSA is recruiting. So if you're interested in joining us, just apply. The link to the applications on our Facebook group as well. And please email or leave comments on what you thought of this webinar so that we'll be able to organize better ones next time. We'll send the feedback forms out in a few days. Once again, thank you, Syazwan and Iqbal.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is the end of our webinar on the Perdana Fellows. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everyone. And thank you,
Thank you.
NAMSA.
Thank you. Yeah.
We still live?
Yeah, we're still live.
Yes.